My name is Jessica Koston. I started competing in 2010. So my first show was 2011. I started competing in the NMA, which is like a very small organization locally. And so the reason why I got into this in the first place, so I was doing kind of like a lot of partying. I was 20. I was doing a lot of partying, just kind of living the wrong way, if you will. And I'd always been involved in sports in high school, that kind of thing. So I got into some trouble. And I was just playing around on the computer one day and I saw a bodybuilding flyer and then a picture of, her name was Amanda Adams. She's not in the IFBB or anything like that, but she was a competitor. The first time I ever saw a competitor. And I'm like, I want to do this. Like, maybe this will get me out of this bad path I'm on. So I literally, the next day, I think it was, hired a trainer. And 6 months later, I competed in my first show. I got second. And I haven't stopped. So that was like 13 years ago.
That's crazy because I mentioned, like I said, I was talking to Phoebe Hagen right before. She said that the way she got into it was just she went to a gym and she saw like pictures on a wall of bodybuilders and she was like, oh, that kind of like drove her. I want to kind of like do that. I want to be like that. And then you mentioned like how you just saw like a flyer. It's so crazy
Yeah.
how like just like a small, seemingly like unimportant thing in your life sometimes can be like such a changer, of circumstances, can change your life for forever.
And it was, so at that time, bikini had just started. It was the very beginning of the bikini division. And so I knew nothing, like the division was still being learned, like the criteria was still being adjusted as we were going. So I was kind of just jumping into something. I had no idea what I was doing. But at the same time, the division was just getting started too. So it was fun to be a part of it since the very beginning when bikini just came about.
How have you kind of seen it, not just bikini, but bodybuilding as a whole kind of change and evolve?
This is where my struggle lied when I first got into bikini, was that because it was so new, it kept changing year by year, the standard, the criteria, what they were looking for. And so I kind of felt that I was always kind of like behind the ball, just kind of chasing the changes, chasing the changes that were happening. So I've seen it evolve so much with the bikini division, but within bodybuilding as a whole. And then also like even from like suits, the way the suits are cut, the jewelry that you wear, like everything has changed. Posing has changed. And I really love that I had the ability to see it kind of since the beginning. And then bodybuilders, like if you think of the bodybuilders, it's just like bigger and bigger, bigger and better, like I'm glad that we're kind of starting to see it become a little bit more streamlined the last couple of years. So
Right.
I don't know. It's just crazy to kind of watch it unfold, honestly, and all the different changes every year. And it's just, you got to keep up.
Yeah. I think that's a part of bodybuilding that a lot of people talk about too, is like trying to figure out like what the sport's going to be, kind of like what direction each part of the sport's going to be going into. And I think it's so challenging because like you said, it does change and evolve, but I think that change, that evolution keeps it so interesting too. It's like, it really isn't the same from like a person, like a fan looking into it. You kind of like get a little bit of a different taste every single season, a little bit. Like it keeps, I guess it keeps it, I don't want to say keeps it interesting because it's always interesting, but it keeps it kind of like, oh, what's this look gonna be this year?
Yeah. And it took me a while to adjust to this, because for so long I was chasing, leaner, leaner, leaner. That's what I was seeing through bikini. Like everybody was showing up like pretty lean for bikini. And I'm like, okay, so I just got to keep going in that direction. And then you see that they want, more fullness in the muscle bellies and, a little less lean looking. Like I love the look right now. Like Miss Olympia right now is, for me, like perfect bikini physique. There's no like crazy striations or anything like that. It's just beautiful. Like she, for me, she's it.
Yeah, and
So,
it's we were actually talking before, like I said, we were talking about just how like bodybuilding with the addition of, bikini and wellness and all these other things, how it becomes more, I think it becomes better because you do get to see people like truly maximize what their body type is best at, instead of that person being like, 18th in this other division. Now they're number one in this because it fits more into this other mold, and you can appreciate that now.
yeah, for so long, you would see bikini girls who, had bigger lower bodies try to fight their genetics into leaning out their legs. And now there's a division that actually embraces that. So I am really thankful that there are new divisions, new criteria and things like that for every body type.
So when you first got into the sport, kind of going back in time again, when you decided to like jump into it, you said you were kind of like going down maybe not the best path, and that
Yeah.
typically making it a change is very hard for anybody. Even if you just consider yourself, doing the status quo, going along and just kind of doing what everybody else is doing, it's even hard to make a change. But when you're going down maybe like a bad road, you want to call it that, it just adds that extra layer of almost like getting to what would be considered normal and then excelling past that. So for you, like what struggles did you face, whether those be actual like, you know, mentally trying to figure things out, or physically making changes? What struggles did you face when you initially got into bodybuilding?
I think me initially getting into it was more of just a goal. Like I didn't know everywhere. I didn't know there was a pro. I didn't know, you know what I mean? Like I had just got in as like just a regular goal. Um, so it wasn't too much of a struggle for me to get into it. But as I'm a very competitive person. So at that point, now I want to win. Now I want to push the envelope here. Like my struggle was, I felt like I was always behind the division. Like I was saying earlier, like it was soft in the beginning. It was such a new division. So they were still figuring out what they wanted, what look they wanted for the division. So then my next show, okay, leaner. Okay. And I just kept chasing. That was constantly my feedback. So I kept getting leaner and leaner and leaner. And finally I felt like I had it, like I was doing Team U. It was my first national show as Team U at the time. And I came in like pretty shredded. And obviously I did not even come close to a first call out. And I was devastated. Like I thought for sure, like, oh my gosh, this is my time. I'm going to turn pro. But it was that was 2016. It was at that point when it started to get really hard for me mentally, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been going at that point, what was it, 5-6 years? And I'm still not hitting the mark. Like, what am I doing wrong? What more do I need to do? I've had different coaches here and there. And so I decided to take some time off at that point. It was 2016. And I don't think I stepped on stage until 2018. So I took maybe 2 years off to grow. I knew I had to grow. Like I didn't have the shape I wanted. I wasn't popping the way I wanted. Like, yes, I got lean, but now I'm just like stringy, like no pop. So I had to make that choice to take a break and focus on really growing. And that was so hard for me mentally to like kind of put a pause to it, because I love it. It is what took me out of like such a dark kind of mental space. So I'd say that little transition was pretty hard for me mentally. And then when I got back into it is when I started actually realizing, okay, I can become a pro.
Yeah. And within those 2 years, did you feel like it was maybe less like structured because you weren't having to go through a prep and get ready for a show? Is that why it kind of felt a little bit more like you
Hmm.
were maybe uneasy about it?
Very, very uneasy. Like, what am I supposed to do with? I still had to train. I still had to eat. I still had to do all those things, but I didn't have that goal. I didn't have that timeline. So I'm like, what the heck? What am I supposed to do with myself? I found myself back out drinking a little bit, like, not exactly. I didn't feel like myself anymore because competing had become such a big part of my life. So to take that break was very mentally hard.
How long did it take for you to go? Because that's like it's almost like a new era, right? You're going through
Mhm.
and doing shows for all these years, and then for 2 years you're not. So how long did it take you to kind of find a groove and find a routine to where you were feeling more like, okay, this is kind of like my new normal that's going to be a positive new normal?
Probably a solid like 8 to 10 months before I was like, okay, you need to relax a little bit, like go through the growing process, enjoy it, embrace it. You'll be back on stage when you're ready. But it took a little bit.
And having built those relationships with people that are in the sport and they're competing, I can only imagine that would be difficult to kind of like watch them go through this process, and then you're
Mhm.
sitting here and it's like, oh man, I wish I could be doing that too.
Yes. And with social media being such a big influence now, that's all I did. I was, you know, oh my gosh, they're doing all the national shows. That could be me. I'm just getting further behind. That mentally, that's what was going through my head. But in reality, I was growing and becoming better, becoming a better athlete, kind of like behind the scenes. So I'm so glad I made the choice that I did.
Yeah. And I think it's so hard to know for people because especially 2 years, that's it at the same time as that it's not like a super long time. It's also a very long time whenever you're sitting there and going through 2 years of not doing something that you love and that you're passionate about and that, is so fundamental within what you had been doing. But when it comes to like you mentioned you were glad you did it, and when you kind of came back into it, you realized maybe like you were more prepared to go pro. At what point though did you actually feel that like, oh, this is actually could become like a reality for me to go pro?
I did the Arnold Amateur, and I really felt like that prep. I looked really good. I had shape. I had a lot of people in my corner, a lot of positivity. It was that show. I finally got a first call out, and I didn't place. I got sixth, but it didn't matter. I felt like I won that show, and it was at that show I thought I can do this. And so that season, I didn't stop. I hit every single national show you could do. And that's when I started to do really, really well. So just getting that like positive reinforcement of getting that call out really led me to like, okay, you haven't been doing all this for years and years for nothing. Like it's finally gonna happen.
Yeah. That's pretty crazy. It's to be able to step away like that. It definitely takes a lot of confidence in the plan for sure. When you stepped away for those 2 years though, did it kind of give you that like that viewpoint of like, okay, I can see how the division is like it's evolving, and I can kind of like, was it easier to maybe see what was going on when you stepped away from it a little bit?
Yes. So even though I stepped away from it, the stage itself, I didn't step away from the sport. So I was still going to shows all the time, watching. I was doing my research. I knew everything about what was going on those stages from the pros, because at the time I was not a pro, from the pros, but even to the amateurs, like, because that's where I was. I knew who was competing in my division, like everything. Like, I didn't step away from the sport. I just tried to learn as much as I could. And then again, having like a lot of positive people in my life. I started hanging out with a lot of people in the industry, just learning from them. And so when I think about it, 2016, when I did Team U, I thought, okay, yes, this is it. I'm going to turn pro, blah, blah, blah. Didn't even get close to a call out. And I was so upset. Looking back, I was nowhere near ready mentally or physically to earn a pro status. So, yes. So then when I jump back into it, I finally feel like I know this sport. Like I've been practicing I may have stepped away from the stage, but I didn't step away from the sport in general. So I was really mentally prepared for every single show I did.
And not just like taking those 2 years to train, but did you do anything else? Did you add anything else into your routine to help, get you ready for that, whether that be posing or, maybe increasing like body work time, or did you do anything to other than the training to help you get ready for the when you were going to get back into competing?
Yep. So I'm not limber, like I'm not flexible. So I did, do yoga. I incorporated that. I would roll out my muscles. That's stuff I never did before, like just taking better care of my body so that when I was able to step on stage again, my poses were better, because I could actually move. I wasn't so tight. So yeah, yoga, rolling out my muscles, posing, like constantly practicing. Um, I was definitely felt like I was in a better place to be up there.
Yeah. And being able to take those 2 years, did you see a lot of transition, like people that were competing that were no longer competing, and like, people who maybe were on the cusp of being able to go pro, maybe go pro? Like, did you see a lot of kind of like transition from when you got in, 16 to when you finally got back into it?
Yeah, so a lot of the people that I was like competing against, a lot of the girls, because I was always in the A class. So I was always in the short class. So I would follow all those girls and I started to see a lot of them turning pro. And I just, it was hard. It was hard to watch because I was like, I want that to be me. But I was just competing against them and I already beat that one girl. And like, that was like mentally a struggle. But finally I stopped like comparing myself to each individual and started focusing on what I was bringing to the stage, because it's so easy to compare yourself to every single person you're going to be going against when what only person you need to improve on is yourself. And that is when everything changed for me mentally.
No, I think that's such a hard thing because like it is a you versus you, but it's also like you have to, at the end of the day, if you're competing, you have to beat this other person. It's a weird dichotomy. It's a weird relationship of self development while also trying to um it's really like you're not it's weird because you're trying to beat that person, but you're really just kind of like showcasing in a way. Like you're really just, here's what I have. It's kind of like you're letting someone else decide. I think that's kind of the interesting part about bodybuilding. It's like, here's what I've done. Judges, like you just, you kind of like decide and we'll, be happy, or we'll be accept what you kind of say about it. So,
And I think another thing about really learning the sport, when I started to think about, oh, lean, 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 but then you go in a competition and you're way leaner than the girl next to you, but she wins. So I had to start really learning what the judges were doing on stage, or with the girls on stage. So like you're only going against the people that show up that day. So they have to make a decision. 5, 6 girls could show up, well, depending on you're in your first call out, 6 girls could show up softer and I'm super hard. Well, I look a little out of place. So you really have to learn too that if you're constantly chasing somebody else's physique or what you think they're looking for that day, you're going to fall short. You just have to bring your best physique. And it really took me a long time to learn that.
even like thinking about what your best is, that's such a hard mental battle to like really accept, especially whenever you don't end up getting the placement that you want. You think, oh, that was I look the best I've ever looked, or I prep the best I've ever prepped, and then you don't end up getting that position. Is it that I need more time? Is it that this isn't right for me? Is it that, like you said, the competition was a little bit different, or the judges maybe were looking for something a little bit different? So there's so many in bodybuilding, there's so many things you have to think about that in a lot of cases you're not necessarily in control of.
No, you're not. You're only in control of you and your body. So that was tough because it was junior USA's, right after the Arnold, and I came in harder, drier, just like, in my opinion, I looked awesome. Like that's the look I like. I like a little harder kind of bikini girl. And I got there and I got 5th. So it was my first time placing ever. And at that moment, I'm like, okay, well, they constantly tell me to come in a little bit harder, a little leaner. What's going on? Because I did that this time and it was way harder than the other girls. And they're like, well, it's just a little too much. So you're fine tuning literally every detail. And then I just kept getting better and better. And I stopped focusing on the girls next to me and just started focusing on me.
So once you achieve that pro card, once you're like, this is what I've been working for, this is like the culmination of years of work, right? How does that like translate into after the show? Like once you like have that high, like what are the emotions that you go through after that?
So this was really an emotional process for me. So because I went so many years of just kind of like fighting for this, I'll never forget it. So I was 34. I was 1 month. So this is when Junior USA's switched to later in the year because of COVID. So I went Junior USA's, Junior Nats, like all throughout, took a break, and then I hit Junior USA's. It was going to be my one show of the year. I'm like, let's do it one and done. That was what I said. So very super emotional. So I've been fighting for it for so long, and I'm like, okay. I always said I wanted to turn pro in the open. Like that was my goal. Nothing against, masters or whatever, but I've been fighting for it for so long in open. That's where I wanted to turn pro. And at this point, a lot of people in my life were like, when are you going to give this up, Jess? You've been doing this for so long. Like, just, you're 34. Like, just, I wasn't getting the support I wanted or needed. So I was like, no. So finally, I'm like, okay, if I don't earn my pro card by 35, I'm going to call it quits. So it's August, and Junior USA's was in August this year. My birthday's in September. I'm turning 35 1 month later. And I'm like, okay, this is literally my only chance. It's the only show I did that year because of COVID. And I did the show and I won. And I'm like, I couldn't believe it. Like I was just so overwhelmed that I actually made it happen because I felt like so many people were trying to like take it away from me at that point, like family or friends, just kind of getting sick of my drive for this. Like, you guys don't understand. Like, I've been doing this for like 12 years. Like, I'm not going to give up. I am this close. So it was emotional to earn the pro card. And then a lot of people like, oh, I want to go to the Olympia, or, they just start getting all these new goals, which is true. But that was like my main goal. And I'm like, I don't even have to compete again. But then I was like, well, I want to do one show as a pro and see what happens. So I did a couple, and now I'm prepping for another one. So just an emotional journey. But now I don't put the pressure on myself. This is more like I work really hard and I think I improve every time, but I'm not bummed if I don't place because I'm literally going against the best of the best.
Once you reach that pro level, it's almost like you're reaching the ground floor of a new place that to be at. You're it's kind of like going from college, like being this superior athlete in college, then you get drafted into the pros, and now you're the rookie. Now you're the person who's like, trying to fight for a spot on the roster where you just like had an All-American season the year before. It's kind of it's got to be a little bit mental, kind of like a mental warfare battle going on between like, I'm so great, but also you're looking around now at the pro level and you're thinking, oh wait, I have a lot of work to do if I want to kind of compete against this new competition.
Yeah. And I went into my first pro show. It was Pittsburgh, which is a big pro show. I was like, okay, let's just do it. It's close to home. And I was not nervous at all. Like, you would think, oh my gosh, I'm going against all these like Olympians, blah, blah, blah. No, I was so comfortable, so confident. And I didn't place, but I still felt like $1,000,000. Like that's where I always wanted to be. Now, as I move forward, I'm like, yeah, I do want to place, but again, I'm not bummed if I don't.
So what was it though? Was it like, do you feel like it was just kind of like destiny type of thing? Like finally, like all the stars are lining up? Do you feel like it was just a culmination of all this work, or do you feel like maybe it was you you put this pressure on yourself? You said, I have to do it by this time. And, how much do you think that factored into it?
I could have used the, I should have not put that pressure on myself. Um, because it took a toll on me. I'm like, oh my God, there's only like one more month and I'm going to be 35 and then I got to quit. When I never really wanted to quit, I was just trying to make other people happy around me because I love it. But I don't know. I think it was just a belief in myself. Like, I'll never forget. Like, I would sit there and take a post-it every single day and write IFBB Pro, IFBB Pro, and I'd stick them around my house. So that's all I looked at all day long. And I just like actually believed it was going to happen. And I was confident on stage. I looked my best. And yeah, I guess the universe was like helping me out. I don't know. It was meant to happen, I guess, when it did.
And how has because you kind of achieved that goal, how has that support or that whatever you call it changed since then, now that you're still competing but you're doing it at the pro level? Like, what winning that show, what did that do to the people around you, I guess?
Honestly, a lot of my family and friends were like, okay, you can be done now. You can eat with us, you can do this, you can do that. Yeah, they still are just like, Jess, come on, what are you doing? They don't get it. They don't understand.
Yeah.
Of course they want me to do well. They know I love it, but they're not involved in bodybuilding. So they'll never understand what it feels like.
Yeah. I think it's so crazy because bodybuilding has like an extreme sport when it comes to discipline, and I don't think, like you said, people can really get, and I don't even compete. And just like from talking to people, I try to do my best when it comes to my health and fitness and working out and eating right and all the things. But you really can't understand it unless you've done it. And that can be applied to anything, right? But within bodybuilding, there's so many factors I think that play into people's perception of what that means within bodybuilding, right? Like you have the the stereotypes of like you're selfish because you're doing all this stuff, and or you are you're shallow, you're conceited, or you're whatever. And then you have like some people who think you spend too much time at the gym or too much time doing this when you could be having fun and enjoying life. And there's all these factors that go into what people look at and see sometimes when it comes to bodybuilding versus I think what bodybuilding actually is and what it actually does for people.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely given me way more confidence than I ever have ever in my life. It's something that I struggled with, confidence growing up. Um, the sport has given me so much more than what people can even realize, which is why, yeah, I listen to them, but I don't even take it to heart anymore. I'm just like, I'm going to do this because I love it. You don't have to understand it. I'm still going to do it anyway.
Does that give you any like fire, any motivation?
Now it does. I think it used to hurt my feelings a little bit when people would be like, just stop, Jess. It's not going to happen for you. Stop trying. What are you chasing after? Um, but once I let that go and kind of stopped caring what they thought and just did what made me happy, yeah, it gives me motivation.
Sometimes it's like proving yourself right versus proving them wrong. I think they both kind of play a role in, at least in my own personal like motivation. Sometimes even I don't know, even sometimes proving yourself wrong, that can be a big one too. Like sometimes you have those negative self thoughts and you just want to crush those. You want to be like, no, this is the things that I can do. So I think a lot of it plays into like what truly drives us besides like the end. When I say the end goal, like the competing goal of it.
Yeah, there was a coach as I was working my way up that literally told me, you're not going to turn pro. And I was like, oh, okay. Like I had to like really take that in. I'm like, what is being said to me right now? Like you're supposed to be coaching me to like win, and you're telling me I'm good, but I'm not going to turn pro. Like I had somebody tell me that. And so obviously I got a new coach. um, but I had to have had at least some confidence in myself, or like this drive that nobody could take away from me to make this happen, or else it wouldn't have happened. So you have to believe more than anybody, any coach, any friend, anybody, that you can do this, you can turn pro, or else it won't happen.
I can't remember the quote, but there's a great quote about that. Like, people don't believe it until they see it, and you have to be kind of the opposite. You have to believe it even when you can't see it.
Right. I feel like that's bodybuilding, because you're training, you're dieting, you're doing all these things that you don't get instant gratification for. So you have to believe it as you're training, as you're eating, as you're doing everything, because it's not instant. So you have to know what you're doing is going to work 2, 3, 4, and in my case, 13 years down the line.
Yeah, talk about some, short-term versus long-term gratification. I mean, that's a prime example right there. Just being able to keep going, being able to see like, oh, this one rep, this going to the gym, this today versus, maybe not going is going to be the difference. And, having this meal versus going out and maybe getting, fast food is going to be the difference. I think we could use a whole lot of more of that within our culture right now.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Whether exactly fast food, social media, all of it, like it's all just like this instant gratification right in front of our face. But for what? Like, there's so much more out there.
This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout.
If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below.
Turning to kind of like what you do with your coaching, when did you actually decide to start coaching?
So during that little 2-year break, where I wasn't stepping on stage, I started to coach just a little bit, like on the side, some of my friends, family, whatever. It wasn't like a real business. So that was like 2018-ish. And then I just kind of kept growing and growing. And then actually I opened my own fitness studio. I had moved to Erie, Pennsylvania for about 3 years. And I opened a fitness studio. And there is when I really started to coach a lot of women. Pretty much every woman that walked in that place, I was helping them in some way, shape, or form. So that's how I really got going. And then I ended up about a year ago moving back to Rochester, New York. And I'm still coaching online. I still train people one-on-one, in person. It's just growing.
How do you find the connectivity when it comes to people who come to you? Because as a bodybuilder, first of all, you are like super disciplined when it comes to these things. And people definitely see you as this more like elevated in the world of fitness kind of person, right? So how do you create that like connection with someone who maybe doesn't initially think that they have the same things within them?
When I would do my consultations, and I would sit one-on-one with every woman that I coach, and I would ask them their why, like, what's going on? Why do you want to lose weight? What's going on in your life? Like your why for wanting to make this change. And I don't want to get emotional. It would break my heart sometimes to hear their why. It was never for the right reasons. It was never, like, oh, I really want to like lower my cholesterol or blood pressure, or I just want to be able to live a long, healthy. It was like never that. It was always because somebody made them feel a certain way. Their kids were making fun of their weight. They can't even look at themselves in the mirror. And I can relate to that so much. And I think that's how I connect with my clients, is that I relate. And yes, they see this version now of me, but that wasn't always the case. And I still struggle. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. I still struggle to this day, like with body image issues, or, am I good enough? So I think that because I relate so much to my clients, they don't see me like this untouchable fitness person that just is fit all year round. They see me as someone just like them who just doesn't quit. And so I really think that being a relatable coach is something that speaks volumes to people, because you can help them through their struggles because you went through it yourself.
Right. No, yeah, I think that's really also a benefit of something like a podcast versus like social media or anything where you can like truly like have a conversation, or you can share more about yourself than just like a little post, because people can sometimes seem like on social media like their life is just this elevated thing, that everything's great. But then when you really get to talk to somebody, you understand like where they came from. You understand the goods and the bads of their journey, the things that they struggled with. And then it's so much easier when you understand everybody else is pretty much going through the same things that you're going through, they did before. Like, it is possible to get over those things. Here's how you can do it. I did it. These are some things that I benefited from. And like, the more I think we can like truly humanize a person and like what that human experience is versus like a slideshow of like perfection, then I think the more we're going to be able to help people.
I agree. And, like they would, I want to look like this. I want abs like this. I want, they would point out my pictures. I'm like, that's show level conditioning. I'm like, here's what I look like in the off season. I'm soft. I have body fat. I'm just like you. And the fact that I'm able to show that and I'm comfortable enough to show that to them, because I don't want them striving, if it's a lifestyle client, for 3% body fat, when I know at the end of the day that's not healthy or attainable long term. So just being real.
Being someone who can show someone, not necessarily like, here's how you reach this body composition, because that's an important aspect of it. But more importantly, I think here's how you can learn like to be happy. I think that's truly what like a coach is. It's like, and do it in a healthy way, of course, because you can be somewhat happy just sitting on the couch eating, Twinkies, but like how you can truly like lay down in bed at night and like be happy with yourself and with what you've done.
Being proud of your own journey. And it really starts with stop comparing yourself. And social media makes it so hard. But because that's what they would do. My clients sit there, I want to look like this. Well, how about let's focus on looking your best for you with your lifestyle and making it work for you so you can actually stick to this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think social media makes it like normalizes the end of the spectrum things, right? Like it's either this person is super shredded, or this person is morbidly obese, or this person drives, a Ferrari, or this person's homeless, this person's super happy, or this person's super angry. Like, it normalizes the two ends of the spectrum and doesn't like show much of like what's in the middle, and how like you can achieve being in the middle sometimes, and how that's a good thing. And of course, if you're a bodybuilder, you're going to get to certain levels of physiques, or you're going to do certain things not in the middle, but like for the majority of people, that's what they think is normal. Like you're saying, like they think that a show day picture is what you're always going to be looking like.
Yeah. And I make it very clear to the people I sit with that is not what I look like year round. I could never look like that year round. It's not healthy. I like to have, food with my family. I like, you know what I mean? Like, I like to be human too.
So being a coach and being an athlete, like how do you manage to how do you find that balance between like living your own athletic journey and being an athlete, as well as like helping other people, whether they be athletes or not? Like, how do you find the mental balance to do both?
It is tough because, like, for instance, I'm coaching a couple girls to compete, and if they're struggling, I have to be the voice of reason and pump them up and let them know, like, this is the process, because they're brand new to it. So I have to give them my knowledge and hope that they can trust the process and move through it. All while, even though I've been going through this for, I think I've competed 40 plus times, even though I've done this over and over, I still get in my own head and have my own, like, am I going to be ready? Like, what, this process is going a little slower this time. And why is it happening? So I have my own stuff that I need to work through too. So it's like getting them on track and then keeping me on track all at the same time can be very challenging. But it can help me too. Cause I'm like, I just sat here and said this to my client because I know, but here I am stressing about the same thing. So it's like, it helps and it hurts a little bit.
It's funny how we can like give advice that's great to somebody else, and then we can't take that same advice.
Yeah. I don't know why that is.
I think it's, it just is another reason why like having a coach while you're a coach is an important thing, or having like a mentor, having someone to like help keep the reality glasses on for you is so important.
Very important. I'm always like, maybe I should coach myself. And I'm like, don't do it. Don't put yourself through that mental stress. Like looking at your own body is difficult, especially when I know what it's supposed to look like and it's not happening. I would probably just crush myself. I can't do it. I need to have someone else helping me along, giving me support, because we all need it.
And it's like it's that support line, really. Like, your coach gives you support, you give you give your clients support, and then they grow, and then they give, their community support, their children, their whoever you like it. If we all have like a good base community around us, I think everybody at the end of the day is benefiting from, like, me helping myself and self-development is going to down the line help somebody else, which in turn helps somebody else.
100%. My struggles even helped me like work through some things, but now I can help other people through the challenges that I faced. So
there's maybe a lost appreciation for that, or a lost art of doing that. Like, I just think we've almost victimized ourselves so much a lot of times that we can't learn and grow from being in a bad situation to both help ourselves and then help someone else. I grew up in a poor area, or I grew up in a rough area, or have this disease, and it's just like, woe is me, instead of thinking the other way of like, yeah, this sucks, but I also have this experience that is so like my own, and it's so unique that I could, shed some light on other people's situations for them. I think, like I said, I think it's almost like a lost art of just like taking control of any situation, like being adaptable, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if you had to put one word on my whole experience, it would probably be adaptable, because I have sat there since the beginning and just grew with the division, with, the industry, and now with my clients, that I just feel like I have a very good list of experiences to not only helps me, but more so helps my clients now.
Isn't it cool though when you do like gain those experiences and it like turns a light on for you, and you just like have this epiphany of, oh wow, this makes sense now.
100%. Like, because at the time when I was doing national level shows and I was not getting called out, and I was getting so down on myself, and I was just me, victimizing myself, until I started, okay, what's really going on? What do I need to learn? What more do I need to do? I need to step back. I need to grow. I need to learn more. And then I became a stronger athlete in that regard. I stopped victimizing myself. I'm like, okay, what's the feedback? What do we got to do moving forward? All right, let's get to work. Like, I think that's 100% what makes you an actual athlete, is not taking criteria as like this negative, like they're putting you down. No, they're just trying to give you the tools so that you can improve every time you get on stage. And I think that was like my biggest learning lesson throughout the whole experience. And like you said, you never see it at the time, but when you look back, you're like, this happened the way it all should have.
Yeah. I think as like kids, when we go through school, we don't see it at the time. And I think we don't also like connect the dots of like how school is almost set up in that way. Like you're learning something that may not like matter in that exact moment, but in a month you're going to be tested on it. You know, I think that's so much similar to life, to where sometimes the test does come before like the lesson in life, but also you could be picking up things, you could be learning, you could be reading, you could be having life experiences. And then that information that you've gained in life, you're going to be tested on it, you know, in some way, shape, or form at some point. So just, you know, I think it's such like an experience of, are you willing to like actually get out there and put yourself in a situation to have those experiences? As a coach, though, what do you feel like you've gained from being a coach and working with athletes that you get to apply to your own experience as a bodybuilder?
Patience, having to be patient with my clients, because whether they're competitive or not, you know, they're most of the time it's like brand new to them. So having patience with them and trying to teach them, like, you know, I didn't know this stuff before somebody taught me this stuff or before I did the research or anything like that. So it's like I'm starting again by teaching them from the beginning. So I have to have patience so that they can learn. So coaching definitely gives me that, and just joy. It just gives me like this, when somebody like messages me with like, oh, I can fit into this pair of jeans that I haven't been able to wear since high school. It's just like, makes me so happy that their confidence is rising, because that's what it has done for me. So I just, a sense of joy to be able to bring that to somebody else's life. I don't think that if I had turned pro a long time ago and I didn't go through the process that I had to go through, I don't think I'd be the same person today. Like it just taught me so much discipline and patience, and just the list that this has given to me is a mile long. Like, I do not wish that it happened any other way. Like, I feel like I have an actual story, you know, like, I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I didn't give up. And I want people to know, like, their journey might not be fast and easy like some, but just don't quit. Don't quit on yourself.
If you're sitting there thinking, I wish I would have, it's going to be a lot harder.
I agree. I don't know what that saying is, but like, you regret. I'm going to mess this up. Like, you don't have regret, like, if you try, but if you don't try, it's always no. That the answer is always going to be no for you. So if I had quit, I would have never turned pro, but I didn't. And that's just what I want people to take from my journey, is that, like I said, don't quit on yourself. And that doesn't, you don't have to be a competitor for that. It could be anything in life, a job, just regular weight loss goals, anything. Just don't give up.
Definitely don't give up. I think that's a great message of the podcast, is just keep going, keep learning too, you know, not just doing it the same way, but also like trying to figure out new solutions and, you know, reading or talking to people or whatever it takes. Just kind of keep putting that work in, and something's good's going to come from it, whether it's a pro card, whether it's just meeting the right connection and having this new opportunity in life, whatever it is. Like, that's my thing, is it doesn't matter what it is, just do something and something good will come of it.
That's what I like to say, forward, not finished. So, like, if you need to pause, if you need to take a break, if you need a second to, like, for myself, like 2 years to get yourself mentally prepared, like, take what you need, take your breaks, but keep moving forward. Like, forward, you are not finished. You are not finished with your journey. Forward, never finished. That's all I can say.
No, that's, very true. I appreciate you coming on the podcast. That was great getting to talk to you and kind of learning a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me.